Commander Jack Reed stared at the massive Hegemony warship through the viewscreen of his battered scout vessel. The alien craft was a marvel of engineering, all sleek angles and perfect symmetry, representing thousands of years of technological evolution. His own ship, in comparison, was a patchwork of human innovation, parts cobbled together from different eras of human spaceflight, constantly upgraded and modified. "They're charging weapons," reported Lisa, his second-in-command. Unlike Jack, who had spent 20 years in the Earth Defense Force, Lisa was a civilian engineer who had volunteered when the Hegemony first appeared in Earth's orbit 3 years ago. "Standard procedure," Jack said with a calmness that belied their dire situation. "The Hegemony always fires a warning shot exactly 47 seconds after detection." The Hegemony was a collective of 17 advanced alien species that had ruled this sector of the galaxy for millennia. They shared a rigid adherence to protocol, an unshakable belief in their superiority, and an utter disdain for the primitive humans who had burst onto the interstellar scene. 30 seconds, Lisa counted down, her fingers flying across the console, rerouting power to the experimental shields. Jack nodded approvingly. The shields were a new invention, created after studying debris from previous Hegemony attacks. They weren't in any manual. They weren't regulation. They were pure human improvisation, exactly what the Hegemony failed to comprehend about humanity. Right on schedule, the alien vessel fired. The energy beam struck the scout ship, but instead of disintegrating the hull as expected, the modified shields absorbed the impact, glowing briefly before stabilizing. "It worked," Lisa exclaimed, eyes wide with disbelief. "Of course it worked," Jack said with a grim smile. "When has humanity ever accepted defeat?" The Hegemony had invaded Earth with overwhelming force, expecting an easy conquest. They had encountered thousands of civilizations over their long history, and each one had eventually surrendered to their technological superiority. But humans were different. Rather than capitulate, they studied. They adapted. They improvised. "They're scanning us," Lisa reported. "Their communications array is activating." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the elongated face of a Vex, the dominant species within the Hegemony. The alien's translucent skin revealed pulsing organs beneath, and its 4 eyes blinked in asynchronous patterns. "Human vessel," the alien spoke, its voice translated through the ship's computer. "Your resistance is illogical. Your technology is inferior. Your defeat is inevitable. Surrender immediately." Jack exchanged a knowing glance with Lisa. This was also standard procedure. The Hegemony always demanded surrender before commencing full-scale attack. Their military doctrine had remained unchanged for centuries. "This is Commander Jack Reed of Earth," he replied. "We appreciate your concern for our logic, but we must respectfully decline your offer of surrender." The Vex's skin pulsed with what Jack had learned to recognize as confusion. "You cannot win," the alien stated. "Our tactical analysis shows your vessel has a 0.003% probability of survival against our armaments." Jack grinned. "Well, that's where you're wrong. Your analysis is based on what you think you know about us. But humans adapt. We change. We evolve." As he spoke, the scout ship's engines, modified with technology reverse-engineered from previous encounters, came online. They generated an energy signature unlike anything the Hegemony had encountered before. "What is this?" the Vex demanded, its calm demeanor cracking slightly. "This," Jack said, "is the first step in teaching the Hegemony about humanity's greatest strength, our adaptability." With that, he cut the transmission and nodded to Lisa. "Execute the plan." The small scout ship surged forward, not away from the massive warship as the Hegemony would expect, but directly toward it, the beginning of the most daring mission in human history. The Hegemony warship's response was exactly as Jack had anticipated, methodical and by the book. When confronted with an approaching enemy vessel, Hegemony protocol dictated a precise sequence of escalating defensive measures. First came the warning shots, then targeted disabling fire, and finally, if necessary, complete destruction. 3, 2, 1. Jack counted down as the massive alien vessel fired its secondary weapons. Lisa's fingers danced across her console, implementing modifications to their shields that had been developed just days earlier. The human ship shuddered but remained intact as the energy beams dissipated across its hull. Shields holding at 62%, Lisa reported. The absorption matrix is working better than expected. The real genius of humanity's response to the hegemony wasn't in creating entirely new technology. It was in their ability to understand, adapt, and repurpose the hegemony's own weapons against them. The shield modifications had been derived from studying the energy signatures of hegemony weapons, turning their predictable attack patterns into a source of power. "Prepare Phase 2, Jack ordered, his voice steady despite the violent rocking of their ship. Every member of his small crew, just 5 humans total, had been chosen for their exceptional ability to think on their feet. There was Tom, the weapons specialist whose background in theoretical physics had led to their current shield design. Maria, their pilot whose intuitive understanding of spatial dynamics had saved them countless times. And Ben, their communications officer who had helped decode the hegemony's transmission protocols. The warship loomed larger in their view screen, its massive hull emblazoned with the geometric patterns that represented the hegemony's 17-member species. Each civilization had surrendered its individual identity centuries ago, subsumed into the collective that prized order and predictability above all else. "They're charging their main cannon," Ben called out. "Standard dispersal pattern." Jack nodded. "Right on schedule. Maria, initiate the approach vector we discussed." Their small ship suddenly changed course, executing a series of rapid, seemingly random maneuvers that no hegemony tactical computer could predict. Human pilots had always excelled at improvisation, a quality the algorithm-dependent hegemony found both baffling and disturbing. The main cannon fired, a devastating beam of energy that would have vaporized their vessel had Maria not anticipated and avoided it through a maneuver that violated several principles of conventional space combat. "We're within range," Tom announced, preparing to deploy the package. The package was the culmination of 3 years of desperate human innovation, a device that combined hegemony technology with human creativity in ways the aliens had never imagined possible. It had been assembled from components salvaged from destroyed ships, research conducted in hidden laboratories, and theories developed by scientists working around the clock to find a weakness in the seemingly invulnerable alien armada. "The hegemony is hailing us again," Ben reported. "Put them through," Jack said, straightening in his chair. The Vex commander appeared, its translucent features now pulsing with what humans had learned to recognize as agitation. "Your tactics are illogical and inefficient. You cannot penetrate our defenses with your inferior technology." "Actually," Jack replied with a slight smile, "we're not trying to penetrate your defenses. We're counting on you to let us in." Confusion rippled visibly through the alien's body. "Explain." "Your docking protocols," Jack said. "They're automated, aren't they? Designed to capture and secure any vessel that comes within a certain proximity of your ship's hangar base." The Vex's eyes widened as understanding dawned. By the hegemony's own rigid protocols, any unknown vessel approaching within a certain range would be automatically drawn into a containment field and brought aboard for inspection. "Deactivate the tractor systems," the Vex commander ordered someone off-screen, but Jack knew it was too late. "You can't," he said calmly. "Your systems require a full reset and authorization from 3 command-level officers. That's Protocol 5-73, Section B, Paragraph 4. Right. We've studied your rulebooks very carefully." As he spoke, their scout ship was already being pulled toward the massive hangar bay of the hegemony vessel, exactly as planned. The cavernous hangar bay of the hegemony warship gleamed with sterile perfection. Row upon row of identical spacecraft were arranged with mathematical precision, their sleek forms testament to the aliens' mastery of engineering. Into this ordered environment, The human scout ship, asymmetrical, patched, and decidedly inelegant, was an affront to everything the Hegemony valued. Atmosphere is breathable, Tom confirmed, checking the readings from their sensors. Gravity at 1.2 Earth standard, temperature slightly warmer than we're used to. Jack nodded, mentally preparing for the next phase of their operation. They'll have a response team waiting for us. Standard Hegemony boarding protocol calls for 20 guards arranged in diamond formation. Which means we don't use the main hatch, Lisa added with a wry smile, moving toward a small access panel near the back of the bridge. The 5 humans had spent months drilling for this moment. While the Hegemony's boarding party would be positioned to intercept anyone exiting through the main hatch, Jack and his team had created an alternative exit point, cutting through the hull at an angle that would be invisible to the waiting guards. Suits on, weapons check, Jack ordered, pulling on a lightweight exosuit. Unlike the bulky space armor of previous generations, these suits were another example of human adaptation, thin, flexible, and reinforced with materials salvaged from Hegemony debris. Their weapons, too, were hybrids of human ingenuity and alien technology. The standard-issue pulse rifles had been modified to emit an energy signature that could penetrate Hegemony personal shields, which had previously made their soldiers nearly invulnerable to human weapons. "Remember," Jack said as his team gathered around the improvised exit, "we have approximately 12 minutes before they break protocol and come looking for us. Stick to the plan, but be ready to improvise." That last instruction would have been unthinkable to a Hegemony commander. Their military doctrine emphasized rigid adherence to established procedures, with little room for individual initiative. It was both their greatest strength and their fatal weakness. Tom activated the cutting tool, and moments later, the humans slipped through the opening into a maintenance tunnel that ran parallel to the main hangar deck. Through small observation ports, they could see the Hegemony boarding party, still waiting patiently in perfect formation for humans who would never emerge from the main hatch. "This way," Maria whispered, consulting the schematic they had pieced together from information gathered in previous encounters. The Hegemony built all their ships following standardized designs, another predictable trait that humanity had learned to exploit. The team moved silently through the maintenance tunnels, occasionally freezing as patrols of Hegemony soldiers marched past. The aliens' movements were precise and coordinated but utterly predictable. They checked certain areas in a specific sequence, never deviating from their assigned routes. After navigating several junctions, the team reached their primary objective, the central computer core. Unlike human vessels, which distributed computing power throughout the ship for redundancy, Hegemony warships centralized their systems in a single, heavily protected location. "This is it," Jack said, examining the massive door that sealed the computer core. "Ben, you're up." The communications specialist moved forward, attaching a small device to the door's control panel. The device, another hybrid of human and Hegemony technology, began cycling through access codes at incredible speed. "The Hegemony never changes their security algorithms," Ben explained as he worked. "They consider their encryption perfect, so they see no reason to update it." Within minutes, the door slid open, revealing a chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with light, the physical manifestation of the Hegemony's collective knowledge and control systems. "Beautiful," Lisa murmured, momentarily awed by the alien technology. "And vulnerable," Jack added, removing a small cylindrical device from his pack, the culmination of humanity's desperate research efforts. "Tom, begin the upload." As Tom connected the device to the alien computer system, Jack checked his chronometer. 8 minutes had elapsed since they entered the ship. They were ahead of schedule, but he knew better than to relax. In his experience, no plan survived contact with the enemy intact. Right on cue, alarms began to blare throughout the ship. "They've discovered the empty scout ship," Maria reported, peering through a monitoring screen that showed Hegemony soldiers swarming around their vessel. Jack nodded grimly. Time to see how well the Hegemony adapts to the unexpected. The Hegemony warship's corridors erupted with activity as the alarm continued to sound. Red warning lights pulsed in perfect synchronization, and announcements in the Hegemony's common language echoed through the halls. Jack's team had studied this language enough to understand the gist. Intruders detected. Security protocols engage. All personnel to battle stations. Upload at 60%, Tom reported, his eyes fixed on the device connected to the crystalline computer core. 4 more minutes. Jack nodded, then turned to Lisa and Ben. Prepare the diversion. We need to buy Tom time. This was where human unpredictability would truly shine. The Hegemony's response to intruders followed a rigid protocol. Secure the breach, establish a perimeter, and systematically search inward. Jack was counting on this predictability. Lisa and Ben quickly set up small devices at strategic points around the computer core room. These were simple electromagnetic pulse generators, but they had been modified to emit a signature that would register on Hegemony sensors as multiple human life forms. Diversion ready, Lisa confirmed. Activate on my mark, Jack ordered, checking his weapon. Maria, how's our exit route looking? Maria was monitoring the ship's internal sensors through a portable interface they had developed. Heavy patrols converging on our position from 3 directions. The maintenance shaft to auxiliary control remains clear. Jack nodded. That's our exit. Mark. Lisa activated the diversion devices. Immediately, they began broadcasting false signatures that would appear to the Hegemony as if human intruders were fleeing in multiple directions away from the computer core. The effect was immediate. Through the monitoring screens, they watched as Hegemony security teams split into precise groups, each pursuing one of the phantom signals. It was textbook Hegemony doctrine. Divide forces equally to address multiple threats, regardless of their relative importance. It's working, Maria whispered. They're following standard search patterns. Jack allowed himself a small smile. The Hegemony's greatest weakness was increasingly clear. They had become so reliant on their established protocols that they had lost the ability to question them, to adapt when those protocols failed. 75%, Tom called out, tension evident in his voice. The device they were uploading contained what humanity had dubbed chaos code, a self-evolving algorithmic virus that would introduce random variations into the Hegemony's rigidly ordered systems. It wouldn't destroy their technology outright. That would be impossible given the Hegemony's superior defenses. Instead, it would do something far more insidious. It would make their technology behave unpredictably. A crash echoed from somewhere nearby, followed by the distinctive sound of Hegemony energy weapons. They're getting closer, Ben warned. Our diversion won't fool them forever. Jack nodded. Lisa, prepare the secondary diversion. Maria, confirm our exit route one more time. Before either could respond, the door to the computer core slid open. A squad of Hegemony guards stood in the entrance, their crystalline armor catching the light. At their center was a Vex officer, its translucent skin pulsing with what Jack recognized as alarm. Humans, the Vex said, its voice betraying no emotion despite its visible agitation. Your infiltration has failed. Surrender immediately. Jack stepped forward, positioning himself between the aliens and Tom, who was still monitoring the upload. I'm afraid we can't do that. We're not quite finished here. The Vex tilted its elongated head. Your resistance is irrational. You are outnumbered and outmatched. Our technology is superior in every measurable way. And that's exactly your problem, Jack replied. You measure everything. You quantify, you categorize, you follow your precious protocols, but you've forgotten how to think beyond them. As he spoke, Jack subtly signaled to Lisa, who activated the secondary diversion, an electromagnetic pulse specifically calibrated to temporarily disrupt Hegemony communications equipment. The effect was instantaneous. The guards' helmets flickered, their integrated tactical displays momentarily disabled. In that moment of confusion, Jack and his team struck. Unlike the Hegemony soldiers, who were trained to fight in perfect formation using standardized tactics. The humans moved unpredictably. Jack rolled to one side, firing at the guards' knee joints, a vulnerability they had discovered in previous encounters. Maria and Ben attacked from different angles, using the room's architecture in ways the Hegemony tactical manuals had never anticipated. 90%. Tom called out, still protecting the uploading device. The Vex officer recovered quickly, raising its weapon toward Tom. Jack saw the movement and made a split-second decision, throwing himself into the line of fire. The energy blast struck his modified armor, dispersing most of the impact, but still sending him sprawling across the floor. Jack. Lisa cried out, dispatching her opponent and rushing to his side. I'm fine, he grunted, the pain in his chest suggesting otherwise. Finish the mission. Pain radiated through Jack's chest as he struggled to his feet. The Hegemony energy weapon had left a scorched mark on his modified armor, but the protective material had absorbed enough of the blast to prevent fatal damage. Still, each breath sent sharp pangs through his ribcage, suggesting at least one cracked rib. Complete, Tom announced triumphantly. Upload at 100%. The crystalline structures of the Hegemony computer core pulsed with new patterns as the chaos code began to integrate with their systems. Subtle at first, a flicker here, a momentary hesitation there, but Jack knew it would spread throughout the entire network, introducing tiny unpredictabilities into the Hegemony's perfectly ordered systems. We need to move, Maria urged, firing at another squad of guards appearing at the door. Our exit window is closing fast. Jack nodded, wincing at the movement. Tom, initiate Phase 2. Everyone else, covering fire. Tom activated the second function of their device. Not content with merely uploading the chaos code, the humans had designed it to physically bond with the computer core, making it impossible to remove without shutting down the entire system. By Hegemony protocol, such a shutdown would require authorization from Central Command, a process that would take hours, giving the chaos code plenty of time to spread. With the device secured, the team began their retreat. They moved in a practiced formation, covering each other as they fought their way toward the maintenance shaft that would lead them to auxiliary control. Unlike the Hegemony soldiers, who moved with mechanical precision, the humans adapted to each new situation, changing tactics whenever the aliens began to anticipate their movements. Their learning, Ben observed as they reached the entrance to the maintenance shaft. The next squad was positioned differently. Jack nodded grimly. Individual adaptation is still possible for them. It's their collective decision-making that's bogged down in protocol. The maintenance shaft was narrow and poorly lit, exactly the kind of space the Hegemony would consider tactically insignificant. For humans accustomed to using every advantage, however, it was perfect. They moved quickly through the tight confines, the sounds of pursuit growing fainter. We have 12 minutes to reach auxiliary control, Lisa reminded them, consulting her tactical display. After that, the chaos code will trigger noticeable system fluctuations, and they'll lock down the entire ship. Jack nodded, pressing a hand to his injured side. What's our status on the second objective? The mission had always had two goals: upload the chaos code to disrupt Hegemony operations and gather critical intelligence from auxiliary control. Information about Hegemony fleet movements that could give Earth's defenders a fighting chance. Auxiliary control should be minimally staffed, Maria reported. Standard protocol puts 90% of personnel at battle stations during an intruder alert, and the remaining 10% will be following standard defensive formations. Jack added, predictable. They reached the end of the maintenance shaft and paused while Ben used their hacked interface to check the security feeds. The small monitoring screen showed auxiliary control, a secondary command center staffed by just 3 Hegemony operators. Remember, Jack said quietly, we need access to the navigation console. Take out the operators, but try not to damage the equipment. The team nodded, checking their weapons. Unlike the rigid specialization of Hegemony forces, Each human was cross-trained in multiple skills, another adaptation born of necessity during the long conflict. "On my mark," Jack whispered. 3, 2, 1. They burst into auxiliary control with practiced precision. Ben and Tom took out the first two operators before they could react, while Maria neutralized the third as it reached for an alarm panel. The entire engagement was over in seconds. "Clear," Lissa announced, already moving toward the navigation console. "Accessing fleet movement data now." The Hegemony's displays were alien in design but familiar in function. During 3 years of war, humans had become adept at interpreting and manipulating Hegemony technology. Lissa's fingers flew across the crystalline interface, bypassing security measures and extracting the critical intelligence they needed. "Got it," she announced after a tense minute. "Downloading to our secure storage." Jack kept watch at the entrance, his weapon ready. "Time check. 7 minutes until the chaos code activates," Tom reported. 5 minutes until we reach our extraction window. Their plan relied on precise timing. The chaos that would soon engulf the Hegemony ship systems would create a brief opportunity for their escape, a moment when security protocols would falter and automated systems would behave unpredictably. "Download complete," Lissa announced. Jack nodded. "Initiate the final phase. Let's show the Hegemony what happens when humans get creative." The journey back to the hangar bay was a calculated risk. While it would have been safer to commandeer one of the Hegemony's small shuttles from a secondary launch bay, Jack's team needed something with more power and range to escape the warship's formidable tractor beams. That meant returning to their own modified scout ship. 3 minutes until chaos code activation, Tom reminded them as they moved through the increasingly disorganized ship. Already, subtle effects of the code were manifesting. Doors opened and closed erratically. Communication panels flickered with static. The perfectly synchronized red warning lights now pulsed in irregular patterns. For a society built on order and predictability, these small disruptions were profoundly disorienting. "Look at them," Maria whispered as they paused at an intersection. Through a viewport, they could see a group of Hegemony soldiers standing in apparent confusion. The aliens were gesturing at their malfunctioning equipment, their normally precise movements now hesitant and uncertain. "They don't know how to function when the rules start breaking down," Jack observed. "They've forgotten how to improvise." The humans slipped past unnoticed, using the growing disorder to their advantage. Where the Hegemony relied on centralized command and control, Jack's team communicated with hand signals and prearranged contingencies. They didn't need perfect information or clear orders from above. They adapted to changing circumstances moment by moment. As they approached the hangar bay, Lissa checked the schematic on her portable device. Security has been increased. 24 guards now, not the standard 20. "They're learning," Jack acknowledged, "but not fast enough." The team took a position overlooking the hangar bay. Their scout ship sat where they had left it, now surrounded by Hegemony guards in a modified formation. The main hatch remained sealed, the cutting they had made in the hull hidden from view. 1 minute to chaos code activation, Tom reported. Then we'll have approximately 30 seconds of maximum system disruption before their redundancies kick in. Jack nodded, formulating a new plan based on the altered guard positions. "Lisa, when the disruption hits, target the atmospheric force field controls. Maria, be ready to make a run for the ship. Ben, Tom, covering fire from those two positions. I'll draw their attention from the center approach." Under normal circumstances, such a direct assault would be suicide. But Jack was counting on the unprecedented confusion that would soon engulf the Hegemony forces. Code activation in 3, 2, 1. Tom counted down. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the hangar bay, systems failed simultaneously. The atmospheric force field at the bay's opening flickered dangerously. Gravity plating surged, causing Hegemony guards to momentarily float before being slammed back to the deck. Communications erupted in bursts of incomprehensible static. "Now," Jack ordered. The team burst into action. Lissa fired precisely at the force field controls, causing them to short out completely. The invisible barrier-holding atmosphere in the bay collapsed, creating a violent rush of air toward the vacuum of space. The Hegemony guards, caught unprepared, struggled to maintain their positions. Jack charged forward, drawing fire while his team executed their assigned roles. His enhanced armor absorbed multiple hits as he provided a moving target, dodging and weaving unpredictably. Meanwhile, Maria sprinted toward their ship, while Ben and Tom provided covering fire from their elevated positions. The Hegemony guards attempted to regroup, but their formation, designed for maximum efficiency under normal conditions, proved woefully inadequate for the chaos unfolding around them. Without clear communications and with their environment behaving unpredictably, their coordinated defense fell apart. Maria reached the scout ship first, slipping through their hidden entry point. Moments later, the ship's engines hummed to life. Another deviation from expected procedure. By Hegemony tactical doctrine, captured vessels should be completely powered down until thoroughly examined. "Fall back to the ship," Jack ordered, ducking behind a cargo container as energy blasts sizzled overhead. Tom and Ben disengaged in sequence, maintaining covering fire as they retreated. Lissa was the next to reach the ship, diving through the opening as Jack provided cover. "Commander," Tom called out, gesturing urgently as a new threat emerged. A Hegemony officer, a Vex different from the one they had encountered earlier, had appeared with a squad of elite guards. Unlike the regular troops, these soldiers moved with greater independence, adapting to the chaotic conditions with surprising effectiveness. "They've deployed tactical specialists," Jack realized. These were the Hegemony's answer to unpredictable situations, soldiers specifically trained to operate when standard protocols failed. They were rare, a tacit acknowledgement that sometimes adaptability was necessary. 20 seconds until the force field redundancies activate. Maria called from within the ship. "We need to go now." Jack made a split-second decision. "Tom, Ben, get to the ship. I'll hold them off." "But, Commander," Ben began to protest. "That's an order," Jack said firmly. "The mission data has to reach Earth." As his teammates reluctantly retreated to the ship, Jack emerged from cover, firing rapidly at the approaching tactical specialists. He moved constantly, using the hangar's deteriorating conditions to his advantage, sliding across suddenly frictionless floor sections, using erratically moving cargo as shields. The elite Hegemony soldiers adapted their tactics, splitting into smaller units to flank him. Jack recognized the strategy and felt a grim satisfaction. They were learning, but too slowly and too late. With a final burst of covering fire, he dove toward the scout ship, pain lancing through his injured side. The hidden entry point loomed just ahead, his teammates reaching out to pull him aboard. Behind him, the tactical specialists converged, their weapons charging for a final, coordinated volley. Jack tumbled through the makeshift hatch just as the Hegemony weapons discharged. Energy blasts scorched the hull where he had been moments before, leaving glowing impact marks on the scout ship's exterior. "Seal it," he gasped, clutching his injured side. Fresh blood seeped between his fingers. One of the blasts had grazed him during his desperate dive for safety. Tom quickly resealed the hull breach while Maria's hands flew across the controls, bringing the ship's systems to full power. Unlike Hegemony vessels, which required lengthy startup sequences and multiple authorizations, the human craft had been modified for rapid deployment, another adaptation born of necessity. Force field redundancies online in 5 seconds. Lissa warned from her monitoring station. The atmospheric barrier at the edge of the hangar bay was beginning to stabilize as secondary systems compensated for the damage Lissa had inflicted. Once fully restored, the force field would trap them inside. "Hold on to something," Maria announced, her voice steady despite the tension. Without waiting for confirmation, she engaged the main thrusters at maximum power. The scout ship lurched forward, accelerating toward the still fluctuating force field. The maneuver violated every principle of safe hangar departure procedures, exactly why the Hegemony defenders weren't prepared for it. 3, 2, 1. Ben counted down. They hit the force field just as it began to rematerialize. For a heart-stopping moment, the ship shuddered violently as competing forces fought for dominance. The thrusters pushing outward, the partially formed barrier trying to contain them. Warning lights flashed across every console as structural integrity alerts sounded. Then, with a final surge of power, they broke through into the darkness of space. "We made it," Tom exclaimed, his professional composure momentarily forgotten. "Not yet," Jack cautioned, pulling himself into the command chair despite his injury. "Standard Hegemony response will be to activate tractor beams and launch interceptors." Right on cue, they felt the telltale vibration of a tractor beam attempting to lock onto their hull. The massive Hegemony warship loomed behind them, its weapon systems charging. "Implementing countermeasures," Lisa announced, activating the system uniquely designed for this moment. The scout ship released a cloud of specially engineered particles, another human innovation that the Hegemony had never encountered before. The particles disrupted the coherence of the tractor beam, causing it to slide harmlessly off their hull. "That won't hold them for long," Jack warned. "Execute the jump sequence." Maria nodded, plotting a course that would take them beyond the Hegemony's immediate reach. Unlike the precisely calculated jumps that Hegemony ships always used, following established routes that had been used for centuries, humans had learned to perform dirty jumps. These were imprecise, potentially dangerous transitions that nevertheless made pursuit almost impossible. As Maria worked, Jack turned to Ben. Status of the Chaos Code. Ben checked the monitoring equipment they had left embedded in the Hegemony systems, spreading faster than projected. "It's already reached their weapons control systems and is moving toward navigation." Jack nodded in satisfaction. The virus wouldn't destroy the Hegemony ship. That had never been the goal. Instead, it would introduce subtle, unpredictable behaviors into systems that the aliens had always trusted implicitly. Commands would execute with slight delays or occasional errors. Sensors would report phantom readings. Communications would contain small but significant distortions. For a society built on perfect order, these small uncertainties would be profoundly disruptive, forcing them to question procedures they had followed unthinkingly for millennia. "Jump coordinates locked," Maria reported. "Ready on your command." Jack glanced at the tactical display, watching as the Hegemony warship launched its first wave of interceptors. The smaller craft moved in perfect formation, executing textbook pursuit patterns. "Let's show them one more trick before we go," Jack said. "Lisa, deploy the decoys." Lisa activated their final surprise, holographic projections combined with electronic countermeasures that made it appear as if their single ship had suddenly split into 5 identical vessels, each taking a different escape vector. It was technology cobbled together from human ingenuity and reversed engineered Hegemony components, a perfect symbol of humanity's approach to the war. The interceptors faltered momentarily, their rigid programming unable to prioritize among the suddenly multiplied targets. That hesitation was all the humans needed. "Execute jump," Jack ordered. The stars blurred around them as the scout ship tore through the fabric of space, leaving the massive Hegemony warship behind. The jump was rough. Violent shuddering and alarming noises testified to the strain on their jury-rigged systems, but effective. When they emerged minutes later, they were far beyond the Hegemony's immediate reach. "Plot a course for the rendezvous point," Jack instructed Maria. "Let's get this intelligence back to Earth." As the adrenaline of their escape faded, Jack allowed himself to truly feel the pain of his injuries. Lisa moved to his side with a medical kit, administering treatment with practiced efficiency. "Will it be enough?" she asked quietly as she worked, her question encompassing far more than just his wounds. "What we did today, will it really make a difference against something as vast as the Hegemony?" Jack considered her question seriously. The Hegemony controlled thousands of star systems. Their technology was still centuries beyond Earth's. Their numbers were vastly superior. "Today we proved something important," he finally answered. "The hegemony has ruled for so long because they eliminated all uncertainty from their existence. Their technology, their tactics, their entire society is built on predictability and order. But in doing so, they sacrificed the very thing that makes humanity strong: our ability to adapt, to think creatively when faced with the unknown." He glanced around at his team, 5 humans who had just infiltrated and escaped from the most advanced warship in the galaxy. "The hegemony believes they're superior because their technology is more advanced," he continued. "But technology isn't what wins wars. It's the minds that wield it. And today, we showed that human minds, adaptable, innovative, unpredictable, can overcome even their most formidable advantages." As their ship accelerated toward the rendezvous point where Earth's remaining fleet awaited, Jack knew this was just the beginning. The chaos code would spread from ship to ship throughout the hegemony fleet, carried by their own communications network. Each infected vessel would become slightly less predictable, slightly less reliable. The intelligence they had gathered would allow Earth's defenders to anticipate the hegemony's next moves. And most importantly, the seed of doubt had been planted within the hegemony itself. Doubt about the infallibility of their systems, doubt about the inevitability of their victory. "The war isn't over," Jack told his team as the scout ship sped through the darkness of space. "But today, we've changed its course. Today, we've shown the hegemony that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our numbers. It's our adaptability." Looking at the faces of his crew, exhausted but triumphant, Jack felt a surge of pride. They represented the best of humanity: resourceful, determined, and endlessly innovative. Against the rigid might of the hegemony, these human qualities would ultimately prove decisive. The massive alien coalition had conquered countless civilizations over millennia, each one falling into predictable patterns of resistance that the hegemony had long since learned to counter. But humanity was different. Humans thrived on chaos, evolved through adversity, and adapted to overcome any challenge. It was this, not superior weapons or larger fleets, that would be the ultimate human advantage over the hegemony. As Earth appeared on their view screen, a small blue jewel against the vastness of space, Jack allowed himself a moment of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time since the invasion began, he could envision a path to victory, a future where humanity's adaptability would overcome even the most advanced alien empire the galaxy had ever known.